This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows on the South Shore, according to the Boston Broadside newspapers. I thought we'd discuss, I received so many calls since I told people I was running for Republican State Committee again, and they wanted to know the reasons why. I thought there would be no better place to articulate them than on this show. The reasons I'm seeking the seat that I held from 84, I think, to 2009 are as follows. The main reason, the job simply isn't being done. There is no money being raised in the district to support Republican candidates. There was no state Senate candidate recruited. We had town committees that barely existed. In the city of Brockton, the state committee's man is the liaison and woman, the liaison with the state party. Their duty is to make sure that those committees are full or nearly full. The policy of the Republican State Party is to fill those committees. In the last election cycle, when the incumbent was in charge, they had, in the city of Brockton, the availability of 245 seats. They simply filed a slate of 16, a public disgrace. People that, and if you would grade them on the passing of their seats that they filled, it would be F. Those people do not deserve to hold those positions. They neither did the job nor did they attempt to do the job. Well, if they didn't recruit candidates in Brockton, it's a tough place. I looked around to the other communities. None of them were filled. Plimpton is not organized. Where has State Committee man Gordon Andrews been? How much money did Gordon Andrews raise in the district? None. When we took over Brockton and revitalized it, what does Mr. Andrews do? He challenges the delegates in the city of Brockton at the state convention. This wasn't about what was in the best interest of the state party, which is activity and participation. This is about Mr. Andrews promoting his own candidate. He didn't have the courage to admit he was behind and orchestrated the challenge. He denied it. He has never been to a Brockton meeting. He's never held a regional meeting of all the town chairmen and got together to discuss a centralized policy of finding candidates and running a state senate candidate. Mr. Andrews appears when there's an elected official and wishes to curry favor with them. I do not believe that the state committee, man or woman, should accept any money from a political candidate when they run for this position. They should be unbought and unbossed. When you accept your funding from one person, you're obligated to vote for that one person. Right now, the president is the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump. Whether you like him or you don't, you're supposed to be there to help him and assist him. You're supposed to be on the same team. These are some of the major differences that I have with Mr. Andrews. Furthermore, I don't agree that he should be aligned with any faction within the party. He should be out getting elected and getting Republicans elected and moving the town committees forward with a positive attitude. The role calls for you to raise money, and which he has not done, and I don't know of anybody that he's contributed to. According to the Office of Political Finance, he's made very little contribution to Republican candidates. So he probably doesn't have the financial wherewithal to be state committee man. The last election cycle, he was funded by Governor Charlie Baker, which is the governor's prerogative, but Mr. Andrews then owes his allegiance to the governor. He supported the governor's candidate to be state party chairman. That was rejected by an overwhelming vote of the state committee. He further attempted to pack the delegates, giving the chairman of the state party the ability to appoint another 300. It was wisely rejected by the body of the state committee. Mr. Andrews has failed to do the job he was elected for. He is invisible. It's one thing to try to promote a candidate. It's another thing never to attend meetings. I contacted other chairmen. The majority of chairmen are coming out publicly to support my candidacy. Mr. Andrews doesn't have the support of the grassroots of the Republican Party. He doesn't come to meetings. He's been invisible. These are not well thought out, well-behaved person that should be in that position. The person should be attending meetings, encouraging fundraising to elect Republicans to the position. When the party is broken, he should have gone into those districts and recruited new people. You cannot throw your weight around only when you want delegates for a certain candidate. He failed supported the candidacy of somebody that was against the president. He failed to support the candidacy of other elected Republicans. He supported Daniel Shores, who lost this district, instead of supporting the Republican nominee. Once Mr. Shores, who ran for Attorney General, lost, Mr. Andrews was not to be seen at any Republican fundraiser, or did he donate to the Attorney General candidate. He has failed to help any candidate on the statewide ticket. He is simply somebody that seeks titles. He holds 2 elected positions as school committee on 2 different school committees in the town of Halifax. Well, that is fine, but what about fulfilling your obligation to the position you were elected to as Republican State Committee? I think it was ill-conceived. He beat, in a special election, the former state rep Dan Winslow, Dan Webster, who was an articulate individual who would have probably worked the district better. This is about getting the message out to the people that Mr. Andrews simply has failed to do the job. It's about getting the message out that you're not just there when an election comes up to favor one candidate over the other. You're there to build a party organization. Candidates come and go, Mr. Andrews. The party remains. These candidates will disappear that you've supported. John Kingston is not visible any longer. He ran for the United States Senate. You attempted to orchestrate the election of Mr. Kingston that was overwhelmingly rejected by your constituents in the 2nd Plymouth-Bristol district. Your role as state committee man is to see and follow the direction of your constituents, what the individual town committees want. Your role is not there to assist other people in trying to promote your viewpoint onto them. It's time to tell it like it is. And Mr. Andrews, you have failed to ever attend one meeting in the city of Brockton. You have been notified of those meetings. You don't come. Evidently, you don't go to Hanover. They tell me they have rarely seen you in Hanover, the 2 biggest communities in the district. Whitman says you rarely come. You do go to East Bridgewater, and I'm sure you go to Halifax. Hanson rarely sees you. Why hold a job if you're not going to do anything with it? The do-nothing state committee man shouldn't hold a job and simply go to state committee people and try to bargain something for himself in the process. This is about somebody that actually does some work. We therefore need a state committee man that's going to be accessible to the voters of the 2nd Plymouth District, 2nd Plymouth Bristol District. Not somebody who fails to attend meetings, who fails to raise any money, who fails to help recruit candidates, who fails to recruit new members of the town and ward committees, who fails to communicate with the constituents of those town and ward committees. I have never received, as the chairman of the largest city in Plymouth County, any written correspondence other than a challenge to our delegates, which was rejected by the Republican State Committee. I have never received any notices from Mr. Andrews, the invisible state committee man. It isn't about running for an election, it's about doing the job. It's about being visible. It's about rebuilding a party that is not in the greatest condition in the Commonwealth. It's about being visible. It's about helping Republicans. It's about encouraging people to run under our banner. I will offer a blueprint in the weeks to coming up that will signify how to rebuild the Republican State Committee. New ideas for new time. We need to bring the Republican Party into the 20th century. We are 21st century. We are behind the times. We are operating under the same rules that we did 30 and 40 years ago. One of my proposals would be to elect the Republican National Committee man and woman at a statewide convention. That way there would be greater representation of people in involvement in that election. That means the Republican National Committee man and woman would have a vested interest in going around the state rebuilding ward and town committees to getting votes. Those are things that we must look at to rebuilding the party. Before the Republican National Committee man and woman were elected by the delegates to the National Convention. The state party changed those rules to elect them by the state committee. It is time to change them again to elect them by the ward and town committee. I think that there should be an annual convention every year. Yes, the costs would be great, but it would get broader participation. And off years, we should hold the election of people so that they could participate in the issues that affect both political parties. Let the people make the choice. Let the people go to a convention and decide where they stand on issues. Those is what builds a party. I think there should be conventions at the state and senate level. 40 districts, 40 state conventions to nominate all the candidates for state rep and state senate. If you do not have the party's endorsement, you simply would not be able to run. They can tighten the rules. The state can require that you get the signatures, but we can tighten the rules legally to require additional attributes that have to be followed. Those are some of the ideas that I will be proposing and mailing out to 8,000 Republicans, a blueprint to building a new party, a blueprint to building more activity, a blueprint to running candidates for every office, a blueprint that we see what the future holds. You know, I look back and I was state committee man for years, but when I was there, we did things differently. We had a political action committee. We gave out money to candidates. We raised money for candidates. We attempted to assist candidates. That's what the office is about. It's not about promoting yourself. It's about doing a job to building a political party. Massachusetts lacks a second, really, political party. And we don't want to see what happened in the South for years, that only one political party dominated everything. When that happens, it breeds corruption. It breeds contempt of the voters. They have very little say in what's going on. We're beginning to see that happening in the Democratic Party in Massachusetts. The projected primary challenge by Joe Kennedy DeMarchi is the beginning stages of that, which I'd like to discuss. I think that's very interesting that Joe Kennedy is thinking of challenging Markey. But somebody said to me in the coffee shop the other day, they couldn't name one thing that either one of them have ever done. Can anybody name anything that Senator Markey has accomplished in his 40 years in the House and in the Senate? Can anybody name one piece of legislation that Senator Congressman Kennedy has passed? Give me a call at 508-822-1106. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, one of the most talked about Republican shows of the South Shore. We will be taking a short break and then we'll be coming back. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and I was discussing, since I had so many calls, why I had decided to rerun for my old seat on the state committee. And it came down to performance and not promises. The incumbent has made a lot of promises and never done anything. There's been no money raised. There's been a decline in the membership of the ward and town committees. There's been a decline. He's never even sent out papers to the ward and town committees to, tell them it's time to be collecting signatures to be on the ballot. He is an invisible state committee man that we need to send hound dogs out to find. He simply runs for office and doesn't do the work. That, they might say a lot about me. They might say that I was, but when I was on the state committee, I was the second person in command of the Republican State Committee. I was the vice chairman. I was the treasurer for years. I was able to win elections both in the Senate district and on the state party district, the people that knew me the best. They saw that I had leadership ability. That leadership ability doesn't exist in Gordon Andrews. Can you imagine he couldn't send out the 7 town chairmen nomination papers for the ward and town committees? I just can't believe it. I have never got a newsletter as to what's going on in the district for Mr. Andrews. I write one for Brockton now and send it out to everybody. The last one went out a couple weeks ago, and I'm in the process of doing another. He simply holds the title and does no work. He might have some health issues, and I hope he doesn't. If he does and is not able to do the job, the recommended course of action would have been to resign the position. Not able to do the work, move on. So those are the reasons I decided to reseek the seat. I'm going to send out this cassette to 8,000 people, telling them the reasons why. I'm going to talk about a blueprint that I have. I have a blueprint to rebuild the Republican Party and increase participation. We are dropping in registration numbers statewide. We must stem the tide. Registration drives must be done. People must get out, and I haven't enjoyed it. I filled up Ward 1. I got 35 members on it. Maybe some might kick out because they were unenrolled and swapped over later. I got 35 on Ward 3. We have 34 in our an additional one. I'm in Ward 5, which wasn't even organized the last election. I have 16 already, and I will fill it up with 19 additional ones hopefully this week. And we'll have a full ward committee there, and I'll move into another ward. That is what the state committee man should be doing. Plimpton, there was a lot of registered Republicans, and you should be able to get them into play. Well, if these things had been done, I wouldn't be doing this again. But they're simply not being done. The erosion continues, as it has for the last 30 years. You cannot elect people that don't do anything when you're in a weakened position as it is. It's time to tell it like it is, and I'm attempting to do that. I'm attempting to tell the voters why the reasons that change, Republican primary voters, why we need change. Hopefully that change will come quickly and we'll be able to move on. Now I want to get back into some of the other things that's going on in the country and discuss them. We have a mayor's election in Taunton. Shauna O'Connor is running, and that will be a very interesting race because she's really good to, if she doesn't win, she weakens herself for the state rep race again, and that would be tragic. She has a lot at stake in this election. And I don't know if you're, as a Republican, if you're ever the front runner in anything. It is difficult to imagine you would be in a city that's overwhelmingly Democratic. You have in Brockton, my estimation is you'll have, which are going to bring them on after they determine who the preliminary candidates are going, the finalists are going to be. There are two candidates. I think it will be Mr. Sullivan or Mark Lorden, then Jimmy Pereira, and then I don't know. I think City Council Darren Court will come in somewhere in the top 5. But I don't think there's, from everybody I'm talking to, nobody that I've met has told me they're voting for him other than Alan Pesovich. And then her neighbors all tell me that they think she's, they're just shocked that she has a sign up. And so it's interesting to see. I don't know. It will be interesting to see who does come on top. I could be wrong. But I would think it will be Mark Lorden and Sullivan in the final. And if that's the case, the city takes a different direction. I don't know who will get nominated. There was no standout candidate for council at large. There's nobody that that would lead the community in a different direction. I have heard very little of their plans. I have heard very little of what they intend to do as council at large, or what their vision for the city is. If there's no vision at this stage, they're not going to have it if they get elected. Usually people run because they have a clear idea what needs to be done. That is totally lacking in this election. I see that Scott Hall, who's run before, is running again, and hopefully we will see that in the future. But those are my opinions as to what's going on. You're on the air with Larry Novak.
Hey, good morning, Larry Novak. How is the great and wonderful Republican Party doing this morning?
It's very good.
I'll tell you what, Larry Novak is the man. Yeah, that's right. We're just calling in and check out the phone line, and we'll be back with you at 11:45 today's football game. Larry Novak, carry on.
Okay, be good and have fun at the football game.
Yeah.
And,
we're at St. John's Prep in Danvers.
That's quite a hike.
Yeah, it was, but the traffic wasn't that bad. Yeah.
How long did it take you to get there?
About 50 minutes, 52 minutes.
Well, hopefully, who's playing?
Bridgewater Rainham and St. John's Prep.
And St. John's Prep isn't in the same?
Didn't make that last one out from you, Larry.
St. John's Prep plays in the same thing as Bridgewater Rainham?
Yeah, they're
Same
in
league?
division, yeah, both of them are Division One.
Ah, I'm surprised. How big is St. John's Prep now?
About 1,500 kids.
That's big.
Yeah, and the campus here, Larry, is like a primo Division One college campus.
No, it always was. It was beautiful up there. They used to play Cardinal Spellman.
It's really beautiful. It really, truly is.
They used to play Cardinal Spellman years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And what league is Cardinal Spellman in now?
What's that?
What league is Cardinal Spellman in now?
Spellman is like a Division 6. They have 8 divisions in the state now, and Spellman is down in Division 6. They play schools their own size and so on. Coyle is now relegated to the very smallest division in the state, Division 8. And, but, it's competitive football. It's good football.
Is Coyle, how many students at Coyle? 800?
No. They used to be 800. They're only about, high school level, they only got about 265.
65. What's Spellman?
Spellman's a little bit more. They're like 350, 360.
God, when I went to Spellman, that was the class size.
Yeah. So they're not as big as they used to be. This school seems to be thriving, and they're very well endowed. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of money.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. Anything in Brockton is struggles, anyways.
Yeah.
There's a change.
Just tell Joey that we'll call back right at 11:45, and then we'll get going with the broadcast, and all things are going as far as the football game is concerned.
Well, we hope everybody will listen in. Thanks for calling, Tony. Be good.
Okay, talk to you later. Alrighty, bye-bye.
This is Larry Novak back with Politically Speaking. My predictions in the mayor's race, and we're talking about city council race right now. There is nobody that's outstanding in that election. There is no stellar candidate that comes out and you say, I've got to get out and vote for him. He's got a vision of where the city should go. Nobody. We have no really contested race this year that I can see coming on the horizon. In the state senate, the state committee people have failed to recruit a candidate, which is sad because, in my estimation, Senator Brady's days are numbered. I saw a poll that more than 60% of the voters in the 2nd Plymouth Bristol district that know of Senator Brady, which he only 40% know him, thought he should retire and give it to somebody else, that he should address some personal issues, which is interesting. We need to see the emergence, as I age, I understand it more, of a viable two-party system in Massachusetts. It was viable in the 90s, and it's now disappeared again. Hopefully we'll see it come back. We'll see more people involved, and hopefully we'll see every office contested. In a democracy, ideas come out of hotly contested campaigns. They come out of vision of where the future should be. If you don't have that vision, you have really the status quo maintained. And is the status quo very good in Massachusetts? That's the key question. Do we pay the lowest tax rate? Do we pay, we have more tax bills than any other state. We pay real estate taxes, we pay state taxes, we pay an excise tax, we pay water bills, we pay trash pickup bills. And the rents are one of the highest in the country now. People are paying more and more for rent, which I think it's absolutely crazy what they get for rent. I mean, but people need a roof over their head and they want to live well. Then you have to maintain a car. I have a car that was just went in the repair shop, and BMW called me. It's a 2-seater BMW 30 and I needed some work on a night, which I hadn't done. They told me I need $7,000 of work on it. I'm going to have to do it on the engine to bring it back up to snuff. But I mean, that's crazy. But you need to maintain it. The cost of living in this state is very high. And it's the lack of contested two-party system. There is a great discussion going on in America right now about political correctness. Has it gone too far? I say it has. What we lose is the common sense approach to solving problems. Why don't we just try to make common sense when there is a problem? And solve it. When you look at the fees at banks, if anything goes wrong, they charge you for everything now. It's called the rip-off of the American taxpayer. Everything there's a charge on. Pay your car insurance a day late, or they don't process when you send it in, they hit you with a $25 late fee. My God, where are the regulators? Why, before they could never have done that. Now they're able to do it. Late fee, you mail it in a week before, and it might not get processed in time. So you pay a late fee of $25. That's ridiculous. Your mortgage, if you pay by check, they do really want you to do it electronically because they don't process the checks as quick. Even though they're required to under the law, they don't. So we're seeing a breakdown. Let me tell you about my dealing with my insurance company. I think you'll all laugh. First, they had the wrong address. Well, we corrected that. Then they had the wrong zip code. They were sending it to. But they didn't seem to pay attention to detail. This is a financial institution that should be paying attention to the detail of it. The company's, rates were lower than the other insurance company. Maybe they don't pay their help enough to, process the things right. But I would say that we need to address these type of issues by regulators. Why should, if you're 1 day late and they hadn't processed the payment, that the postmark on it, because I went in and postmarked the thing, and it was postmarked 7 days before it was due. It takes 2 days now. There's no overnight mail, which is another public disgrace. A company isn't doing well. What do? They cut back on the services. Instead of being overnight in better performance, they go the opposite way. They cut everything, and what will happen is the post office will continue to decline. That is not good management style. There is no blueprint, there is no thought process. What would be better is if the service was better, people would be more willing to pick up more expense. But when mail gets lost, takes days to get there. I didn't then do overnight mail. It's supposed to be there overnight. Well, guess what? The 2 packages I sent took 2 days to get there. I've got to go back to the post office and get my money back. But the quality of the service is surely lacking. And you want to make sure that everything is taken care of. You want to make sure that everything is upgraded. And when a company isn't doing well, if the service becomes better, people return to it. You don't want, like I left Comcast and went with Verizon. I'll let you know if that works out well. The first time that Verizon came in, they didn't hook up the lines right. Have you ever tried to get anyone on the phone from either of these companies? It's impossible. So, the quality of the service continues to decline. America is accepting second-rate service where before it never would. This younger generation, thinks everything can be done through the internet. Well, the other day, T-Mobile, I have T-Mobile and Verizon, they were down. They went down at 5:30 last night and came back on in the morning. Some of the towers that people were attached to went down. It took them hours to get up. So I asked them when you're going to get a credit to our bill for it, and they said, oh, no. Where are the regulators? Why don't the regulators tell them they have to credit these accounts? You know, you think about it. There was a foreclosure problem when the economy went south. Did the banking commissioner step forward and go after any of the banks? Of course not. It's all a game. He sat back. The federal government bails out the banks. Did it help the average taxpayer? No. They get ripped off. Who paid the bill? The average taxpayer. But, the elected officials didn't get anything accomplished. Question of the day. Can anybody name one thing that Congressman Stephen Lynch has accomplished? Can you, Joey?
No, I can't.
Do you know who Stephen Lynch is?
Barely.
Do you think anybody knows who Stephen Lynch is?
No.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
I mean, would you know how to, would you expect him as a congressman to be more visible?
Absolutely.
Do you think he's serving the public well?
He's not visible, so no.
Yeah.
So, do you think he's ever passed any legislation? Typical response of people electing another Democrat who does nothing for Massachusetts. They talk a good game when they're running, but do they ever deliver? Can you name, Joey, one thing that Joe Kennedy's passed?
No.
Joey, do you think he's running just because he thinks the seat belongs to the Kennedys?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you name one thing that Senator Markey's passed?
No.
So the answer is, when you start asking people, is they can never name anything anybody's accomplished on those jobs. So it is a terrible indictment. I bet if you went on the street and asked 50 people what Joe Kennedy has accomplished, not one of them could answer it. And that's pretty bad in my estimation. Do you think that they are, do you think that Joe Kennedy is a major force in the United States Congress, Joey?
I don't know. I don't know.
Have you ever heard, do you see him on the news every night?
Not every night, no.
Do you see him ever on the news?
Rarely.
Right. Do you see Senator Markey ever on the news?
Rarely.
Right. Now, do you believe in the green legislation that Senator Markey wanted to tax everybody to do?
Absolutely not.
So, I mean, who do you think wins, Joey, the primary between Kennedy and Markey?
That's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Do you have who would you vote for?
I don't know at this time.
Right. So it'd be open for debate. Of course, I will be voting in the Republican primary, as I always have. It is an interesting look when you ask the public, can you name one thing that any of them ever done? It always comes back that can't. And the people, they're not doers, they're talkers. They haven't solved any of the problems facing the Commonwealth. People should open up their eyes. That's why the state is becoming largely unenrolled. The inability to accomplish things. And I would hope we will see the end of that. Getting back to the elections in Brockton. So I think it will come down between Sullivan and Mark Lorden. Mark is a former judge, and I think the fact that he's got the negative of not living in the city, but the fact that he's a former judge should help him. The fact that his father was a former judge should help him. The fact that they had long roots in Brockton might overcome the fact that he hasn't lived there in the last 25 years. The fact, I can't name one thing that Bobby Sullivan has done, and I like Bobby, as city councilor. I mean, they don't communicate, they don't send out mailings, so you don't really know what they're doing. Hopefully, we will see things change in the weeks to come. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, and it's a great thing to be on the air and have somebody calling in, and